Hello, and welcome to Next Up with Naming St. Louis. I'm your host, Will Houston. I'm the Marketing and Technology Chair of Naming St. Louis. And on this podcast, we're here to explore the stories, experiences, and insights of dynamic professionals making strides in their careers. We'll be speaking with those who are on a journey of growth and advancement. Our goal is to inspire, inform, and connect you with incredible talent shaping the future of the communications industry. Thank you for joining us today. Let's introduce our next guest. Katina Krittenen is a senior technology and transformational leader with deep expertise in integration architecture, organizational alignment, and large-scale operational delivery. As a senior director at Charter Communications, she leads enterprise-wide integration programs, driving cross-functional strategy and partnering with executive leadership to deliver high-impact transformation initiatives. Known for her enterprise systems thinking, financial acumen, and ability to bring clarity to ambiguity, Katina is consistently the steady hand that guides organizations through complex change. She also serves as president of NAMIC Denver, where she champions industry-wide equity, leadership development, and community advancement. In this role, she curates programming that elevates diverse talent, strengthens cross-market collaboration, and expands pathways for rising leaders in technology and media. Beyond her corporate leadership, Katina is the founder and CEO of Sacred After, a transformational wellness brand dedicated to guiding women through grief, growth, and rebirth. Through guided journals, ritual practices, immersive content, and community-centered offerings, she merges executive strategy with soul-deep healing frameworks. Sacred After amplifies her mission to redefine what power, restoration, and self-leadership look like for women rebuilding themselves after profound life transitions. Across every space she leads, Katina is recognized for her authenticity, strategic brilliance, and her ability to build both systems and people with equal intention. She stands at the intersection of transformation, wellness, and operational excellence, shaping futures with clarity, compassion, and unapologetic vision. All right. This week on Next Up with Naming St. Louis, we have Katina Krittenen. I'm super excited about this one. We have, I think, so much that we can learn from you. So if you would start by introducing yourself.
Oh goodness, oh goodness. You're so kind. Right, my name is Katina Krittenen. Many people call me Kat. I have been in technology for over 25 plus years. I don't want to date myself in that space, but I have. I work for Charter Communications. The work that I do there is that I'm a software development technology leader and a technical integration leader as well. So what that kind of means is that I get to look at enterprise programs and projects and deliver feature sets within our video product and engineering space. And what that entails me to do is understanding the scope of video, the technical side of it. That's the space that I lived in and grew up in. So I was an engineer and worked my way up the ranks, but the work that I'm doing today is very broad and very deep at the same time. Building solutions to help our deliver products and features to our customers. I also serve as the NAMIC Denver chapter president. This is my second term in that seat. And so I'm very passionate about NAMIC Denver, as are you, Will. I've been with NAMIC for pretty much the better part of my career, same, in technology. Passionate about, wanting to have more diverse, leaders and people and spaces and to come into this industry because it's such a dynamic industry and it's not small by any means. It's always transforming. So that's what I do in that space. I'm also a published author. So I launched a wellness brand called Sacred After, where I produce a grief journal based on my own lived experience. And so my mission there is helping individuals cope with that in their day-to-day and leadership and grief. I think there's a place for that. It's something that people don't talk about. So that's a little bit about me without like giving the whole sources about myself, but I'm happy to be here to have this conversation with you.
No, that's a great introduction, and I think it speaks to the level of what this conversation is going to be like, right? So I think that's I
Yeah.
think I think that's great. So
Yeah,
kind of to start off, right? You mentioned that you've been in telecom for you know, since around 20, since about 25 years, right? So
yeah. A
you
little bit more than that,
a
but
little bit
yes.
more. Yeah. Yeah. So with that, you've seen ups and downs. You've seen telecom come through
Yeah.
many different evolutions, right? Can you tell me, sort of one, what the landscape was for you as far as, being in software development, being a black woman in software development. Also, what is it like for the youth in that? And then also what drew you to this field?
So, I got my start, and just gonna say I got my start in technology in 1999, 2000. I started with a semiconductor company named by the name of Motorola, for those who remember Motorola. And I was at the time, and I remember this clearly, I was at the time building silicon chips with acid and all the things, right?
Yeah.
And I was all smocked up in a clean room and all doing all those things. And I was like, I don't know if this is the technology that I was wanting to get into.
Yeah.
Because I've always had an engineering background, given the fact that my father, he's a double engineer as well. And so that engineering brain kind of was ingrained into me, but that experience told me, I'm like, okay, I'm on the other side of the spectrum when it comes to technology. And so I pivoted in to 1999, and I pivoted and I got into telecom at the time, where there was like tons of telecom communications that were just popping up. And I had did a stint at Dish, oh, EchoStar at the time. It's been so long. And then I've jumped back and forth between a few other communications companies that were sprouting up. And I was more on the analyst engineering side. And I realized that I had this knack for building things and understanding complex systems and being able to understand how it works. And so I'm the kind of person that will take things apart, put it back together in order for me to learn. And so that was my first start in telecom, and more so on the technology side, the networking side, the billing side of the house, where I had to understand how things worked at the time before we had all these major,
Yeah.
companies out today. I mean, it was very different back then. And when I made that pivot into like, okay, I want to get into actual development, that happened, in 2006 for me. And that's when because I was doing a lot of consulting at that time between 2000 and 2006. And I was learning the industry and trying to figure out, well, where do I want to fit in? And I landed in pure on telecom. And
Yeah.
back then, there was a bunch of little telecom companies coming up and they were all getting bought up and merged together and all the things, right? But I came quickly aware that I was mainly the only Black person,
Yeah.
let alone the Black woman sitting
Yeah.
in this space.
Yeah.
And so that was different. I mean, given the time, we've come a long way, but I was still, maybe one or two in the organization at the time when I had joined. Sometimes I was the only one.
Yeah.
And and I've always had that in the back of my mind, but I didn't let that stop me as to why I wanted to learn more, do more, and be more. I knew I wanted to like make an impact, but I didn't know how and where. I just knew that I needed to learn. And so I was always drawn to, those who were the SMEs in this space and would ask to say, hey, would you mind just having a conversation about what you do and why you do it and why this is important? I'm curiosity is a core value for me. So I was constantly peppering people with questions so I could understand. And that's how I kind of grew in that space, to understand the information and then say, okay, I need to go back to school to get that technical acumen underneath my belt, because it's great to see you hear things in theory, but you still need to understand how things work at their core to be effective. And so that's kind of a little bit how I kind of like got into that technical foundation. And then from there, it was like from one thing to the next, I was asked to go do this particular thing because I learned really quickly. And then I would adapt. And then as soon as I'm learning, I'm looking for the next thing, like asking, I'm following the breadcrumb, if you will. And that's a software term as well, follow the
Exactly.
breadcrumbs. And so I just walked my path, irrespective of the fact that I was the only Black person there.
Right.
I didn't let that be a barrier
Hmm.
to my success of where I wanted to go because I knew that I wanted to learn more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's two things I have to touch on here that interest me quite a bit. So first one I'm going to start with because I think it'll be the shorter of the two, is s- Denver. What's up with Denver, right? So somebody I love somebody are you so you're born and raised in Denver?
No, I'm not born and raised in
Okay.
Denver. So I am actually a military brat and
Okay.
I've been all over the place.
Hmm.
But why so Denver is probably the longest
Yeah.
space that I've lived in my adult life, well, my
Right.
entire life, because
Right.
of being in the military, you
Move. Yeah.
shift from
Hmm.
place to place.
Hmm.
Um, there was a lot of reasons that brought me back to
Hmm.
Denver, seeing Denver was becoming that technical hub,
Yes.
if you will.
Yeah.
And if you follow anything in technology, during that time, there was a handful of
Yeah.
technology companies
Yeah.
that were here in Denver.
Hmm.
And I happened to land at a gig known as Maestro Television, which was bought by Time Warner Cable. And Time Warner Cable was bought by Charter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so how I became to grow to Charter is that was my consulting gig. I was hired to be their billing SME because I understood the billing system and how it worked and how it was coded and how it was interacting with all their middleware applications. So that's what I was brought on to do.
Yeah.
I spent about two and a half, 3 years at doing that work.
Hmm.
And plus I was paired with an engineering team. And so I'm like, okay, great. I'm next to the engineers.
Right.
That's the thing I want to go do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember the few of the gentlemen who hired me who are still with Charter to one of them are still with Charter to this day. They interviewed me and say, "Hey, why you want to do this work?" I said, "Because it seems like it's fun."
Yeah.
I'm not in front of people. I'm in the background, learning how a server works, learning how code works.
Right.
And so that gave me the spark to say, okay, I need to go and finish up my degrees
Yeah.
to get to that technical understanding so I can add more value to what we were building at the time.
Yeah.
So I served in it as an engineer for I think about 5, 6 years in that space. Worked my way up to a principal engineer, and then took on a managing principal engineer role where we had at that time where I had people.
Mhm.
That was like it kind of naturally happened. Um, it wasn't like go and do this. It was just a natural progression. And so I took on a leadership role as well as engineering task. And so I learned about the systems and learning how to lead people as well at the same time. And then, pivot into a directorship.
Yeah.
And that right there was like, oh, you sometimes you think you made it, and you're like, no, you think you're
Not
at
yet.
another, you're just at another level of the
Yeah.
mountain. That's
Yeah.
all.
Exactly. And then there's another one, right?
There's just another one.
Yeah.
And so and it was at a time of great change and seeing
Yeah.
opportunity.
Yeah.
And so if this talk doesn't, if you don't get anything out of this talk, but to understand my story is that learning to see the opportunity is
Yeah.
something that I had to get really good at.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so I don't want to, we can talk about that more if you want, but being able to pivot and be able
Yeah.
to see the opportunity in order for you to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so the reason I bring up the reason I brought up Denver was because, right, if you're in tech,
Yeah.
like you've been able to thrive there in Denver, right? Like you
Yes,
said. And
yes,
then
very much so.
I think about people like Robert F. Smith, who is a Denver native, right? And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, there's something going on people talk about Atlanta
Yeah,
and Chicago
yeah,
and DC. I
yeah.
say there's something going on in Denver too.
It definitely is. I mean, we don't have the density,
Hmm.
of a lot of different cultures, but it's changed. It's
Yeah.
changed a lot. And
Yeah.
today it's a technology
Yeah.
space. It has really good companies here that's
Hmm.
providing good value here. Charter is here. We have a campus here, and it's
Yeah.
it's the hub of where our technology
The
teams are.
R&D. Yeah, all R&D. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's a great space.
Nice. Nice. And then so the other thing you mentioned was curiosity as a core value. I
Yes.
love that. I love that. Can you speak more to that? Your as a your well, your core values in general, but then that one specifically as a core value and how
Yeah.
that's attributed to your success.
Yeah, so the few of my core values is curiosity. The other one is that I value deep connection
Mhm.
of building good relationships and just being a good human overall,
Yeah.
But curiosity, I've always been curious. And it starts from day one. Like I said, I'm exposed to that engineering side, and I was always artistic and curious as to how something works. And I think, if anyone who is looking to grow themselves in spaces, that you have to be open enough to be curious about what you do not know. And
Yeah.
that is like an ego thing that sometimes people need to understand.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We think that we need to come in guns blazing, knowing it all.
Yeah.
And to truth be told, you're not going to know 100% of the job.
Yeah.
The thing is, do you have the technical aptitude to do it, the capabilities to do it, to be open what you do not know and where you need to grow? And so I take curiosity in not just in my personal life and my professional life, but I use it as a barometer, if you will, to help me discern, like, well, what what else do I need to understand in order to grow as an individual, to become a more well-rounded individual, And so now I'm in a role where I'm not using my coding skills,
Yeah.
but those coding skills were from when I was curious to understand that. That's the work that enabled me to understand things at a bigger picture because I understood how the technology works.
Right.
And once you understand that piece, you start to learn about, well, how does the business work with technology?
Right. Yeah.
How does the product requirements get developed? How does the product itself comes to life in order to serve it up to the customer? And so you start building that skill set, but you have to be curious to do it, and you have to be vulnerable enough to say what you do not know.
Right.
And I think that's, sometimes when we get into these spaces and we're trying to get to the next level, we feel like we need to have all the information all at once in order to get into that role. And
Yeah.
that's not always the case. It's like, do you have the aptitude to learn?
Yeah.
And sometimes on the job. And a lot of the things that I've had to do is learn on the job really, really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and then apply it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
So to kind of wrap that up, would you say, because you've gone, like you said, you've gone from a coder to a principal in this space, would you
mhm.
say that's your secret sauce, right? Is it the mixture of your intellectual curiosity as a core principle and the ability to pivot, right? And
Oh
and
God,
and
yeah.
learn.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. The being able to see opportunities is
Mhm.
like you got to be able to see around the tree in the
Yeah.
forest, and be able
Yeah.
to and I'm a good seer of
Mhm.
of things, of understanding the landscape at a larger level.
Mhm.
And instead of me like putting my head down and just like I'm just going to do this job to the best of my ability and hope that someone will recognize me,
Yeah.
doesn't always work that way. And so I'm telling your audience, like, bring your head up out of the sand,
Yeah.
look around, find the opportunity of where you can improve it,
Mhm.
or where there's a gap, or where you can like add value and try to and come up with an idea and put yourself out there. It's going to involve you putting yourself out there.
Right.
You know, if it's already been done, fine, but maybe it needs to be fine-tuned. Um, we make the mistake sometimes by thinking that if all I do is do my job day in, day out, and just work hard, someone will recognize me. Well, you own your development.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
own your journey
Mhm.
in getting to the next space. those around us are here are mirrors to help you, see where you need to work on this particular skill or build this particular relationship. And I think that's part of the journey as us in our careers. And
Yeah.
so, it's not as, oh, you got it, oh, she got it handed to you. I'm like, it didn't work that way for me, and it's still not working that way for
No,
me.
no, yeah,
It is being able to see opportunity, spot opportunity, and see, well, what value can I bring to this? And the title and the things will come. And I want to touch on title because I feel like people need to hear this.
yes,
I was one of those people who felt like I needed to have the title in order to have authority and influence.
mhm,
That's not that's not the case. Titles are what you get and that you have temporarily. I love the quote from the Shonda, I think it's the Shonda Duckett, or I
yeah,
forgot her
yeah.
last name, but
Sanders,
I love her.
the Duckett Sanders, yeah, yeah,
Duckett Sanders, yes. Um, our titles are rented. And I cannot, I agree with that 100% because I've had so many titles here in my career.
yeah,
I don't get married to them. And so when you are pursuing, like, here's the next thing in my evolution, like I want to go to XYZ title, right? Ask yourself, what are you really looking for? Are you looking for authority? Are you looking for expanded growth opportunity? Are you looking for equity? I mean, what is it?
yeah,
Get clear about the thing because people think when have had a lot of people come to me, well, how do I get into leadership? And I'm like, do you mean how do you get the next title or do you really want to do leadership? Because those are two
right,
different things.
right,
Leadership is not a title
yeah,
in my mind.
yeah,
It is a culmination, the persona, if you will, of the person that is demonstrating their capability to lead in when there's ambiguity, when there's change and conflict, and be able to grow other people, irrespective of their title.
right,
And so I would challenge people to say, okay, well, why am I actually going after this? Is it because of something to say that I made it?
yeah,
You do that inner work. And I
yeah,
had to do that and I still do it.
yeah,
I do it over the course of my career because it you will find in your career that what you thought you wanted 20 years ago is
yeah,
not what you want now.
yeah.
It changes.
Absolutely.
So you just got to be open.
Yeah. And so something you kind of touched on there too is I think some of the people I know, right, who may not have done a lot of, corporate work, but maybe are more entrepreneurial, or like, I want to do this or I want to do that. They say they act like there's corporate and entrepreneurial, like you are not an entrepreneur within your corporate life.
Oh God, yeah.
And I see the way you're shaking your head. Please, yes, definitely tell me.
Yeah, I mean, there's that term, there's the entrepreneurial,
Yes.
the person that's inside the company being
Mhm,
having an entrepreneurial spirit. And then there's the external person where you have a whole business and you're running it day to day,
mhm,
right? I think you can be both.
yeah.
I'm both.
Mhm,
Um, and I think there's merit for both of it. Um, you have to have a little bit of go-getter in you to challenge things,
yeah.
to bring forth new ideas.
Absolutely.
And that takes a special skill set, just
Yeah.
like everything else.
Yeah.
You got to be able to like try. Um, and that's what I've done in my career. I've just said, hey, what about this idea? And if it gets shot down, it got shot down. I don't want to live my life or my career by not producing an idea and saying, well, dang, I don't want to look back and say, well, shoot, I should have said this.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I
Yeah.
want to like shoot your shot, man.
Yeah.
Shoot your
Yeah.
shot. Do what you got to do.
Mhm,
You never know where that's going to take you.
right.
And if it's not the idea for that particular time, maybe it's an idea for a different time or a different audience.
Yeah.
But at least you can say, hey, I did that
Mhm,
and move on.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, um, you've gone from being, um, of someone who did the on the ground coding to being in a directorship, and we've talked a
Mhm.
little bit about how you got there. But in the moment, how did that transition feel, right? From going to be a person who may or may not, you mentioned this, right? You don't necessarily have to be a director to be a leader. You're probably a leader already, right? But
Yeah.
can you tell me a little bit about the actual how it felt and some of the steps that you actually went through from within that transition?
I'm gonna speak directly to the directorship when I first got my first directorship.
Okay.
I remember, and this leader, I'm gonna keep his name private because he's a great friend
Yeah.
now. He told me that you're never gonna be 100% ready.
Mm.
And he sat there and he looked at me. He goes, "Do you want to do it or not?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, I do."
Yeah.
And then when, I applied, I interviewed and I did the thing and I got it.
Mm.
Then I had that OS moment
Oh, yes.
and that the holy moment of like, what did I step into?
Yeah.
Because I thought I had this perception that, oh, you just lead a team,
Hmm.
you make sure the work gets done and yada, 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 right?
Yeah.
I didn't have the business acumen, if you will, of what the directorship entail at the time. I had a little bit, but the deep understanding of how a business operates. And I'm like, oh, now I got to go learn this new thing.
Right.
So what got me to that directorship is not going to get me to the next space. I have to
Yeah.
start developing that skill.
Yeah.
And so I remembered when that happened, I went home and I just started writing out what are the areas of things that I need to understand about this role. So I went on a whole research exercise about what
Yeah.
does it mean to be a director of software development and what are the roles and responsibilities that I need to understand, right?
Right. Mhm.
And like the things that I didn't understand as a people leader. Like
Yeah.
there was another aspect of, even though I was a people leader, but I was a people leader of maybe of a small team. Now I'm a people leader of an
Totally.
organization
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
that has more people,
Right.
at that time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I've got to learn how to manage this team versus team A versus team B. How do they come together?
Mhm.
And then how I need to learn how to manage up to my leadership.
Wow. Yeah.
That was like, I never done that.
Yeah.
So, and so I had to learn how to deck presentation. And that in of itself is an evolution, has been an evolution of my career to this day. And
Wow.
I live in decks today.
Yeah.
But that's the evolution, right? So I had to learn PowerPoint. I had to learn things that I was a coder. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't do PowerPoint, Excel, and and all
You're
these things.
right.
But I had to learn it really quickly. So that
Yeah.
meant I had to take some classes,
Mhm.
and then from that I said, well, I need to go back to school for that.
Yeah.
And so I applied myself on the things like I wrote a list.
Mhm.
It was actually a list of things that I needed to do technically for that role. When I say technically, like what are the technical acumen for a directorship that I needed to do?
Right.
And then I had to learn how to grow my people
Hmm.
to do the thing that I was doing because now I'm in a different role because I
Right.
can't do director role and that role. So that means I now had to learn how to grow people.
Yeah.
That means I had to learn how to have hard conversations. I
Mm.
had to learn how to develop people underneath me
Yeah.
and help them grow. So that was a whole nother part of the job that I realized I had stepped into. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I didn't realize I signed up for that. But that's what you
Yeah.
sign up for. And I said, be careful what you wish for with leadership because you get like
Yeah.
there's a whole people component to this.
There is.
And so
Yeah.
you've got, the people, and that's the thing, the people are like 80% of the job.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
It just is. And to this day, people are 80% of the job.
Yeah.
Because I need the people in order for us to deliver the value to our customers, right? So you can't, and you got it. And I had to realize that I wasn't doing this alone.
Yeah.
That was another lesson.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
hard lesson.
Yeah.
So, your team is only as good as for you to get out of the way and allow them to do the work
Yeah.
and then champion them and then doing the things and we're bringing this across the finish line together.
Wow.
It's not about you.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. I love that. Wow. And so, yeah, I could definitely see, right? So, right, I've been an individual contributor now for quite some time. I'm a sales engineer and I work within a team, but mostly things are given to me and they're like, hey, we have a nut for you to crack. Can you go do it?
Yeah,
And I go off to myself, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
being your job being assembling that team, oh my goodness, yeah,
yeah.
I can see that being a culture shock.
and be able to assemble it. And sometimes now I'm in a space now where I have to bring together groups of people and teams together where
Mhm.
I don't have any authority as their leader, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But I have to influence that through the relationships that I build. Say, hey, here is the goal, but
right.
we need to come together and how do we get there, right?
Wow.
And so that takes time to
Hmm.
build that muscle in it. And so I'm going to tell your listeners out there, it's like, listen, leadership is not a one and done.
Yeah,
You know, you just don't get to a leadership role because, you know, that's the next transition for you.
right.
You get there by actually doing the work.
Yeah,
You don't get it handed to you. You got to like prove that you can do it.
yeah,
You gotta be doing the job already
yeah.
before the thing actually comes. And then
Exactly.
it's a natural progression. That's like, well, this makes perfect sense why that person needs to pivot here
Hmm.
versus, well, that she may have to sit a little bit to learn this skill.
Right.
And that's sometimes a hard pill to swallow when you're very ambitious. And I know that I'm pretty sure some of your listeners are very ambitious people.
Hmm.
But sometimes you got to understand, like, don't let ambition,
Yeah.
kill the growth in the areas that you need to get to, right?
Right. Right.
Because you want to be someone who's well-rounded.
Yeah.
And you don't necessarily have to be light,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you need to have the discipline and
Mhm.
the ability to lead when it's hard
Yeah.
and when it's
Absolutely.
challenging.
Yeah.
It's easy when it's like, oh, this is a walk in the park, but when things are hard
Yeah.
and they're challenging, you're having to navigate, across organizational boundaries and different personalities. You've got to learn how to balance that level of engagement across the two.
Absolutely. And so that I think you also touched on one more important thing in there, which is your ambition is one thing, but
Yeah,
the ability to say, okay, but here are the gaps in what I need to know and what I need to learn, right? And so I look at you now and you have your MBA, you have certificates, you have all of your previous
yeah,
technical expertise, right? And you went
yeah,
out and got that because you said, I have gaps, I'm going to fill those gaps. Can you talk a
right.
little bit about that?
Yeah, so and again, I was in another leadership course and I was with other leaders who had those certificates and that mastery behind it. And
Hmm.
it wasn't just because of them, it's because I was missing a core business element that I didn't understand. Because you got to remember, I came from a technical
Yeah.
background.
Hmm.
The business mindset is something that one you have to have exposure to, or you just land in that space, or
Yeah.
you go and learn about it. And
Right.
so I had to, during my working hours, I went back to school. I went and got my MBA. It was probably the longest schooling I've ever done.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it opened my eyes to how things work
Hmm.
in the business world. It gave me perspective as to why certain things, why leadership at certain leadership level would pivot or make decisions in the best interest for the company.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, it's a business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people that make the business. And so I
Mhm.
needed to go in and get that training, if you will. And I was doing it as I was working. So everything that I was learning at school, I would come back and I would apply it here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, you learn, you apply, you learn, you apply. And I
Mhm.
just kept doing that until it became like another muscle.
Wow.
And I'm doing that now more than I ever was.
Yeah.
And I think I don't regret going back getting that MBA.
Yeah.
It actually has helped me with my own confidence and with my own understanding of how, business actually gets done.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm gonna pivot just a little bit, right? We've talked a lot about your career as far as within Charter and kind of what you do, how you've grown through the ranks. I want to talk a little bit about Kat, the published author.
Oh.
I want to get an idea of, sort of, how you, of course, you related your business section to that, but you are outside of that still even, everybody, people say, oh yeah, well, you're 50% this or you're 50% that. No, you are 100% this, and you're also 100%
Oh
this,
yeah,
right?
oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
can you tell me about your journal? Tell me,
yeah.
yeah.
So, sacred actor. So this is probably a heavy topic for some people, and I hope that this doesn't trigger a lot of people on that who are listening. And so in 2022, I lost my husband to a motor vehicle accident, and it took me some time to come back to being back at work, understanding who I was after the event, and unpacking a lot. And and it wasn't until basically last year when I launched this journal, it took me a good 4 or 5 years to get to that point
Yeah.
to talk about how grief impacts our leadership when the event happens, because we all go through it.
Yeah.
And I was, as I was as I continue to heal, because I feel like grief is a healing journey. It's not one and done. Um, and I was looking back on the tool that I needed at the time. And I'm a journaler, but I needed something to help me guide me through what I was feeling and
Yeah.
what I was dealing and what I was managing at the same time while I was working. Um, and so it came about the idea actually came to fruition in 2024 when I was kind of like thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I do this. I'm not for a technical thing. I don't know if I want
Right.
to put live out there. And then I don't know if I want to do this. But
Yeah.
then it kept coming back around. It just
Mhm.
kept coming back around. And I said, and I was talking with it with other women that had similar issues. I had similar paths to me, and got some encouragement saying that you should probably like think about putting it out as a journal or maybe doing a book. And I said, well, I could do a journal first. And then the book is actually coming. There's another thing coming. But the
Oh, okay.
journal was the thing that I said, okay, I think I can do that.
Mhm.
And so that process, while I was, working, doing
Right.
all the things,
Mhm.
I started with just my own journals
Mhm.
about what I needed, like a framework, if you will, to help me process who I was
Yeah.
and who I am now. Because
Wow.
I'm definitely two different people,
Yeah.
I'm not the same person that I was prior to my husband passing to
Yeah.
who I am now.
Yeah.
And so uh, in the weekends, I started developing things. I'm a creative person, so I started doing artwork. I
Yeah.
started this like, well, let me just put it together to see how this would work.
Mhm.
And then I would pitch to my girlfriends and my friends and say, well, what do you think about that? And then it just kind of came together late. It actually got legs last year.
Wow. Yeah.
In like June, it got legs. Like, okay, you're putting a lot of energy and time in this. You need to get it in gear, sister. Either you're going to go with it or you're
Yeah.
gonna shelve it, right?
Yeah.
I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. And then
Mhm.
I must have hemmed and hawed for months about like I softly launched it on Instagram. I'm like, just soft do this, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then something just told me inside of me that said, that's that, mm-mm. And I'm praying, I got my faith and everything, and I said, nah, you gotta put it out there. And
Go big.
so
Go big or go home, huh?
I go, yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think fast forward to November, I actually launched on my late husband's
Oh,
birthday.
wow. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, and I did a whole LinkedIn post saying, hey, I'm doing this, and, I see this as an expansion of the work that I'm doing
Mhm.
in leadership, because leadership is a core value, core identity for me.
Yeah.
And so this is just an expansion of this work because I really feel like I want to help those who have encountered grief at
Yeah.
this level.
Yeah.
And all grief is different,
For
but it's
sure.
still grief in my mind,
Right.
and how it impacts your ability to grow
Mhm.
and know that you're not broken, you're just becoming. That's the
Yeah.
tagline.
Yeah.
Um, and that you can get through this.
Mhm.
Because I didn't think, if you would have told me like back in 2022 that I'd be doing this, I'd be like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here I am. And
Yeah.
so I really feel like it's a tool to help anyone who is faced with it
Mhm.
when they want to or when they're ready at their time.
Yeah.
And so I put it out there in the world. And so
Yeah.
that's how that came about.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I wrote written articles before, and I've got
Yeah.
other articles, things, but this is something that's really deeply personal,
Yeah.
and I wanted to put this in the world to help those because
Yeah.
I truly believe that if I had this um journal prompt, this way of looking at grief, it probably would have just helped me ease with this
Yeah.
a little bit
Absolutely.
sooner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think, you touched on a couple things there that I just want to talk about a little bit more. First of all, the importance of being a well-rounded person, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of us, especially in the US, right, we are so in line with what we do being who we are, right? But
Mm,
you are in tech, you're in leadership, but you're also an artistic person. You're a person who does write, you're a person who does journal. And
yeah.
when in the time that you needed it, the things that were there that helped you cope were those things, the artistic part, the journaling part. Can you speak
Yeah.
to kind of being that whole person a little bit more?
Yeah, I think people that there's this thing out there, they want you to bring your whole self to
Hmm.
work, right?
Hmm.
And I struggled with that
Yeah.
because, there were times where I would code switch and people understand what that means.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
okay, I'm gonna have my corporate persona, then I'm gonna have my personal persona, right?
Yeah.
And, I don't like splitting myself into two people because
Yeah.
I'm one person.
Yeah.
And here are the facets of me as a person. I'm
Hmm.
a technical leader. I am a business owner. I
Hmm.
am a gardener, a
Yeah.
traveler, an
Yeah.
artist, all the things, right? And
Hmm.
that's what makes up uniquely me.
Hmm.
And I don't feel like you have to split your personality in order to be in this industry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we need people who come from diverse perspectives and diverse backgrounds and experiences to make things better. Because if we're all the same, then it'd be boring.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Exactly.
I had a carbon copy out there of me, I'd be like, wait a minute. It's the same person, right? And so I
Yeah.
think that's what makes us unique.
Yeah.
And so I've I've done a lot of inner work of saying like, well, this is Kat.
Yeah.
I am no nonsense.
Yeah.
I can be a little bit sassy.
Yeah.
People who know me, but
Yeah.
I'm always going to lead with good intent,
Yeah.
and I'm always going to be focused on, well, what's the value that we can bring in, whether that's in business or in my personal life and my friendships,
Mhm.
I'm really focused on connection,
Yeah.
like build the connection.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you are the leader, right? So, and one more piece on this, you are the leader of not just within your actual job, but also you're the president of Namick Denver.
Yeah,
How,
yeah, yeah,
how do you bring some of those you guys do events, you have,
yeah.
different things that you guys have going on. How do you bring some of the knowledge that you have from just your other experiences into being a leader for, Namick Next and the next gen
Yeah.
leaders?
Well, I started with NAMIC, this is as a membership, and then there was an opportunity to be the treasurer. Like, anything with treasury, I was like all on it, because I was like, I can do this job in my seat. I love that the
Mhm.
financial aspect of it. So I joined.
Yeah.
And how it's like anything that I'm doing now, it's a relationship thing,
Yeah.
with NAMIC member, it's about the power of relationships.
Mhm.
And how do you bring value?
Mhm.
And this dynamic in general, dynamic next, and as you can tell, we're changing
Yeah.
how we operate and how we want to bring value to our members.
Mhm.
And what I'm really focusing here with the Denver and our board here is what is it here in Denver that we can bring to help those who are in transition in the challenging times of like, is there programming that we can help them, the art of the pivot,
Yeah.
or learning about AI,
Right.
or learning about, how to, communicate better. We are really focusing on this year of bringing programming that's centered around that to the community,
Yeah.
and helping those find their way to pivot because, there's been a lot of disruption in the communication space. And so that's where I'm focusing out here right now with the team, in partnership with NAMIC National. I'm pretty sure you are as
Yeah.
well with NAMIC St. Louis.
Yeah.
Um, we're doing those things like let's start looking locally, let's start seeing what the community needs um to give back, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That's great. And so I think that it's awesome. Again, right, it's and I'm very passionate about this, that it's good to do what you do and make sure that you're taking care of yourself, but being able to, keep a door open or put your hand back to bring somebody else along is
Right,
extremely important.
right. It's very much important because we're here about it's all about connection in my mind. It's the experience and the influence that you give to someone. You never know what your story could help influence someone else
Absolutely.
to get where they need to be, right?
For sure. For sure. And so, okay, we've talked about a lot of big ideas and heavy things. Now I want to just know a little bit about what you like to do, right? I think that's a
What I
huge
like
piece.
to do. Well, for me, I love to garden. Right now, I'm like itching right now. I told one of my coworkers I'm growing some onions in a pot inside my house
Yeah.
right now because
Got to get something going.
I got a greenhouse and all this
Yeah.
stuff, but I'm like, I really want to get my hands in the dirt because I really feel connected that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So gardening is one of my passions that I love to do, but the second passion is traveling.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
just being a nomad in the world and going different places. Those are the things that that's what I do to fill my cup. So
Yes.
that's part of my self-care practice of
Right.
knowing, I need to go rest and not have to be on all the
Yes.
time.
It's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to so I purposely plan place time and for me to go and recharge because that way I come back a little bit more rejuvenated and fresh to help, engage with the teams and engage in the work that I'm doing and as well as my own business stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I crochet and I draw. And
Nice.
so those are some other things I love to do. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And so, do you have any places in mind? I know you stay pretty busy, but do you have any places in mind here coming up that you're wanting to travel? Any places that you're looking at?
Well, if anyone at work would tell me they were, if you ask that question of them, they would say, "Well, Kat's probably going back to Spain." I go there,
Yeah.
but this time, I'm gonna stay a little bit more of on this side of the continent.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm looking forward to is getting back to the continent, the
Oh
diaspora,
yeah. Yeah.
going to Africa. So that's like a bucket list thing that I'm planning
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Um, there's some really short stays.
Yeah.
I'm learning with that, not try to like do this big bang
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
a year type trip. I'm trying to sprinkle things here and there, but I've got some things on the radar for this year.
Nice.
Still
Nice.
planning.
That sounds great. That
Yeah.
sounds great. All right. So, okay. As a final word, if you could go back to the 2006 version of yourself, what is the one piece of advice that you would think that you would give to 2006 Katina about the
Oh God.
journey that was ahead of you?
I would tell her, I'm like, first I would say thank you to her.
Yeah.
I would say thank you.
Mhm.
And I would say, girlfriend, buckle up.
Yeah.
Because that version of me was very much linear.
Yeah.
This version of me is very much fluid.
Mm.
And I would tell her that you got this.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Looking back, and I've kind of done the same exercise with myself, which is why I felt important to put it on there.
Yeah.
Is yeah, because you don't know, right? Especially when you're in the midst of everything, when you're in the
Yeah.
midst of those storms, you don't know that you're gonna come out of them. But then you look
Mhm.
back and you're like, I always had the equipment.
Yeah. You always had the ability. You just had to
Yeah,
get out of your own way,
I love it. Yeah,
And sometimes the lesson repeats.
yeah.
That's okay too.
Yeah. Oh, sometimes you need it. Yeah.
Sometimes
Kind of
you need it.
recall. Yeah.
But yeah. But I
Yeah.
would tell myself, keep going. Yeah.
Right. Perfect. So, before we wrap everything up, do you have anything that you want to plug? Anything that you kind of want to
Well,
get out there?
I hate that I want to do all that, but stickerafter.com if
Yes.
if you want to explore about the grief process. I'm, it's a very dear topic for myself, and I feel like it's something that's not spoken enough about.
Yeah.
And so I'm open if you want to talk to me about it. I'm on LinkedIn. Just pull me up, Katina Krittenen there. And I'm also on Instagram. So that's all I got to say about that.
Got you. Perfect. And those links will be in the show notes for Naming Denver and for the sacredafter.com. They will both be in the
Yeah,
show notes.
yeah,
Katina, it has been such a
yeah.
pleasure speaking with you, and I thank you so much for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to take the time to have this conversation with us. And I love this kind of collaboration between our two groups. So thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
This month, NAMIC Next St. Louis chapter will be hosting our first in-person wine down event at Total Wine & More in Brentwood. We have keynote speaker Dr. Tara Strickland coming to speak on the topic, Growth Spurt, Personal Growth and Transformation. She will teach on supporting intentional change through self-awareness, resilience, and sustainable growth tools. There will be light food and refreshments available. We will also have a wine tasting with a professional sommelier and time to network after the event. Date, Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. Time, 6 to 8 p.m. Central. Location, Total Wine & More, Brentwood, 90 Brentwood Promenade Court, Brentwood, Missouri, 63144. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you found it encouraging and insightful. With over 15 chapters nationwide, NAMIC is passionate about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the communications industry, with a wider range of professional development opportunities, networking events, and leadership programs. NAMIC is dedicated to empowering multi-ethnic diversity in the media and communications industry. Members gain access to valuable resources, industry insight, and an incredible community of like-minded professionals. For more information, go to NAMIC.com or to the NAMIC St. Louis chapter at NAMICSt.Louis.com or LinkedIn at LinkedIn.com/NAMIC St. Louis. Thank you and have a wonderful month. See you next time.